And currently at Nova, I've been working on the construction mapping strategy, some jobs to be done work, and a change management effort to launch a research platform named Insight. And this presentation is based on one model of change management. So have you ever thought, wow, that person's really handling change well. They must be a strong person. Today, I'm going to speak on the art of becoming stronger with change. And there's a framework and tools that anyone can build in their life to help manage changes and assist through those transitions. Even if you're really good at change already and transitioning, I hope there'll be a takeaway today that can help. So some of the things that we're going to cover are providing tools and perspectives for accepting endings and loss, and creating a vision and making sense of the chaos in the neutral zone. And finally, celebrating and seeing the beauty in your new beginning. All right, let's see. So change is part of life. There are good changes and bad changes, unexpected changes, and changes we anticipate. Some changes are abrupt and some are gradual. Life is full of changes, and there are several of these that I've gone through this year. I started researching to learn more about handling transitions as I went through some pretty tough changes. Some of my learnings were by watching TEDx talks or other helpful videos and podcasts. And then I took the MiTek course on change management, which focuses on using a framework to help companies transition through organizational or platform changes. And a lot of the principles I learned along the way helped me so deeply that I wanted to share today. So change is what happens to you. We may have a little, a lot, or no control over what happens to us. Transition is what you think and feel internally about the change, and we do have control over this. Transitioning well or adaptability can make the difference between flourishing or extinction. There was an adult study of wellness or happiness called the Grant Study, and for 75 years, they documented all kinds of life events, reactions, and success in a varied group of people. Their goal was to measure what leads to happiness. What did they find? One of the key ingredients for having high well-being was to be adaptable. When the next change hits us, how can we be flexible and adaptable and use it to our betterment? Hopefully what we talk about today will help with your skills and adaptability. So this depiction shows our process in adapting to change. Today we're going to talk about these three phases of transition. Endings, which includes processing loss and acceptance. The neutral zone, which sounds harmless, but is a time which can be chaotic and filled with uncertainty. And finally, new beginnings and the beauty and strength that's seen through this process. It's important that when a change happens, we don't get stuck. We keep moving to complete the transition process. So let's talk about the first phase of endings. Recognize the loss. Don't ignore or deny it. Write down what you've lost. A year ago last March, I had been dealing with my husband who had become an alcoholic. We had been so happy for so many years, but in recent years, he developed a real problem. I had been supporting him through rehab and relapses, but there came a point where I knew I was just enabling him. He abruptly left March 26th, and I knew we were heading for a divorce. And after 20 years of marriage, that was a big change. I began to write down everything I was losing, all the aspects of my life that would be changing. I took some time to object to this loss. It wasn't fair, and to grieve the loss. I was also realistic and wrote down things that were changing for the better. Going through this process of writing it down helped me to have a point in time that I dealt with this. And I've looked back at this list to have a realistic perspective of what was happening back then. And this helped me to move forward to the present, so all those thoughts of the past were just swimming in my mind. Well, how about dealing with loss at work? If we think about managers trying to make changes in a platform or a process at work, it's an important step to collect information on what a loss change might bring. Meet with a team of people who are being impacted and collect their positive feedback or their issues that they believe will need to be addressed. having that clear understanding of the loss is so important because there needs to be a strategy in place to account for all of this. Maybe the new process needs to be adjusted. Knowing all of this early and taking it into account for the plan helps people have more trust in the change that's being requested of them. So after there's a recognition of the loss, it's important that we move to acceptance. There are several keys of acceptance I'd like to highlight. There's many more, but one thing is, don't compare your life today to what it was yesterday. It's a new life, it's a new you. Take the words if only and what if out of your vocabulary. After our divorce, I was hoping that my ex would seek recovery. However, he lived in an even more unhealthy way. And on December 9th in 2020, he passed away from liver and kidney failure due to that alcohol use. Dealing with his death was difficult, and the process of grieving had me remembering all of the good memories. And I was kept wondering what if, or if only, as I thought about how he got into that state that led him to death. And having my head in the past, was really upsetting. And after several weeks, I had to just catch myself when I said what if, or if only, and just stop. And as positive or negative memories appeared in my thinking, I would accept those memories, and then I would just say, but now he's gone, and not allow myself to dwell on the past. And found that taking my focus off of the past freed up a lot of energy to deal with what was happening today. Another help with acceptance is contrast frames. So if something's bad, consider how it could be worse. Always frame it in a light of empowerment. A couple months ago, on January 14th, my mom was diagnosed with brain cancer. And as I prepared today's presentation, I was sitting with her in hospice at my dad's home, helping to care for her. And she passed away February 28th from grade 4 glioblastoma. My daughters and I have discussed what we could be thankful for in this terrible loss. And my daughter Courtney brought up that this type of cancer isn't known to be contributed to by any outside factors. It might be, but they don't know of anything for sure. But it can happen at any point in life. So this could happen when she was a child or when she was 30 or 50. And we were thankful that we had her here with us until she was 70. Another thing I focused on to contrast how things could have been worse is that she was a fantastic mom. And we had a great relationship, and I know I'm blessed in this. There could have been so much more regret and difficulty otherwise. Another tool we can use in acceptance is to change a stumbling block into a stepping stone. So there's a speaker, Peter Sage, who said, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Strength comes from adversity. We know from going to the gym that the way to grow muscle is to push past our limits. My girls tease me because when someone says, oh, I'm sore from my workout, I say, ooh, that's awesome, because I know their muscles are going to be stronger. What's nature trying to tell us? Many gifts in our lives have been wrapped in the paper of adversity. So when you've worked through the ending stage and have accepted the change, you might find yourself in an unknown place. A place of uncertainty without a clear future. Perhaps you've lost your job. You've accepted this reality, but now what? Maybe you're a new parent. Your world is turned upside down in a good way, but what vision do you have of parenting? What does your day-to-day look like? This is a time to be creative. Look to the future and create a vision for what life or work looks like, incorporating this new change. One of the things that can help in creating this vision is to ask a question outside of yourself. What does great look like? There's a speaker, Cy Wakeman, who uses this question to help people deal with problems at work. Something bad happens to you and you're angry. Maybe it's a confrontation or an injustice at work. How can we look beyond ourselves and ask the question, what does great look like? Yesterday, our own Kristen Hillis was speaking on the International Women's Day Global Panel, and she recounted a story about a time when she worked in a different organization and was overlooked for a promotion. Instead, a younger, inexperienced man was given the job. In fact, she was asked to mentor and train this person to set them up for success. Initially, her reaction was not to be helpful. After all, this wasn't fair in the first place. But as she did some thinking, she considered the impact this new person would have on many people's jobs in the company. She didn't want to see others suffer when she had the ability to make an impact, and she provided him the information needed to do the job properly. I think this is what great looks like in that situation. When something difficult happens to us, it's tempting to use that as an excuse to lash back or exhibit bad behavior. But the situation would likely be better served if we took a step back and asked, what does great look like in this scenario? I'm trying to adopt this mindset of asking this question when I encounter difficult things at work or otherwise. But with any change, whether it's difficult or welcomed, take time to create your vision. The earlier, the better. Moving the vision for the future earlier in the process helps in dealing with that loss, and it helps in the neutral zone. So it's not to say that something might not create further changes, causing that vision to have to be altered, but having it in place gives a foundation to work from. If this is an intended change, think a new software, like a software platform for your company, having a clear vision agreed upon by leadership is crucial. It would also apply, for instance, to a positive change you'd like to see in your life, like improving your health. If you've been at MiTek long enough, you may have taken some people first training. During the course I took, we were asked to create a life vision. And in the vision I created for my life, I wrote the phrase, run the best at the end. And I knew a lot of older people who weren't very pleasant to be around. And I don't really know if it'll happen, but I'd like to be a wise and caring older person, someone who's contributing even more as I get older. And after I wrote this phrase, run the best at the end, my brain started immediately planning, like, how do I attempt to accomplish this? So I started researching more and more about healthy living and attitudes, and I still don't know how well I might fulfill this vision in the decades to come, but the research process itself has transformed me already. Another example of how creating a vision can help is when there's a terrible tragedy. A friend of mine from high school lost her daughter in a minor traffic accident because she wasn't wearing her seatbelt. She was a mile away from home and probably thought it wasn't necessary. This mom created a nonprofit, Buckle Up to Love Up. She's organized 5K charity runs and donates the money to a college scholarship for some of the kids at her daughter's high school. But much of her purpose in this is to highlight the importance of always wearing your seatbelt. Her going through the process of creating this charity allowed something positive to come out of something that was a devastating loss. Take the energy that you might have exerted in ruminating about the past, becoming angry, and instead apply it to some creative thinking about how you can build something positive. Also, when you're in this neutral zone, it's very, very important to communicate and then communicate some more. If you're implementing a new platform or process at work, make sure you're having regular interactions to communicate the progress. The worst thing is for people to hear something from someone else, making it appear like they were left out of the loop. People need to continue to see leadership support. You can't communicate enough during this time. Let's say you're finding your way in a new way of living. Support groups might be the form of communication you need. Online, in person, supportive friends, maybe this women's group. But supportive groups can help solidify your vision for the future. So now that you're building based on your vision, we're in the final stage of transition. We're in our new beginning. So take time to recognize what you've achieved by transitioning through change. Maybe you feel like you've adapted well to becoming a new mom. Perhaps you feel good about the job you're doing in a new role at work. Maybe you found your way past bitterness and are able to look to the future in a hopeful way after a tragedy. Recognize these achievements. I recently learned about kintsugi, and I hope I said that right, which is the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with lacquer mixed or dusted with gold. Sometimes it's known as gold joinery, and it's way more than just a repair. This method brings new life to pieces by highlighting their brokenness, often making the repaired piece even more beautiful than the original. The practice itself arises from several different Japanese philosophical concepts, including accepting change and seeing the beauty in the flawed and imperfect, and regret when something is wasted. Don't waste your experiences. So let's celebrate. If you reflect on the many changes in your life, you've mastered some changes, others not as much. Why? What phase did you succeed at? And what phase did you get stuck on? How can each one of us handle the coming changes better? When you transition through a change well, you improve your resilience and become stronger. Take time to celebrate this because more changes are coming, and I'm excited to see the beauty and the journey of your life. So thank you. And